Hello, Year 12. Welcome along to Term 3, Lesson 2. And today is a bit of a combination of looking at lots of different things. We're going to start off by completing some of the work that I set you last lesson. And then what we're going to do is we're going to recall some of the different production elements, some of the knowledge that we're going to need for lighting and for staging. Now, I know that we've done lots of this stuff before, but it's really appropriate that we keep going back over that and that you can just recall it from memory really, really easily so that you can apply it to your exam next year. So, what you are going to need for today is paper and 3 different coloured pens, please. You are going to need different paper from last lesson so you can create new notes, but you are also going to need some of the notes from last lesson so you can complete those final tasks. Digital Theatre opened with things that I know to be true loaded if you need to. If you've got that already finished, then that is brilliant. And then the circle map that I sent you last time. So pause the video now, make sure that that stuff is in front of you. Wonderful stuff. Okay, so you will notice that the screen in front of you is the screen that you ended last lesson with. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to spend the first 15 to 20 minutes of today's session completing your circle map. I'm not going to go through the details again. If you need to refresh your memory of that, my advice is that you spend a little bit of time going through last lesson's video. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and come back when you have completed it. If you have not completed the whole map within that 20-minute time frame, please stop there, but I need to have a minimum of 2 sections out of 3 completed, but I think you will have had enough time to complete that. So it's no longer than 20 minutes and come back to the video when you have done that map from last lesson, please. Wonderful, welcome back. So moving on to some knowledge from today's lesson. Let's get rid of that pop-up there. So moving on to the knowledge from today's lesson. And what I'm going to ask you to do is this. On your piece of paper, I'd like you to name the stages below. So you will see 4 images on the screen in front of you. I want you to sketch the images on the screen onto the piece of paper that you have available to you. I would like you to identify the names of each of the stages from their diagrams. Now, you have 2 minutes to do this. If you finish within that 2 minutes, can I ask you to clearly label the entrances and exits on your diagrams? However, if you do not finish within 2 minutes, then you can leave that extension task. So you have 2 minutes. Pause the video now. Off we go. Wonderful. I'm hoping that this is going to be a nice, easy task for you because, first of all, that you'll have looked at stages GCSE. And second of all, we have done some work on this already. So you will notice, top left, we've got theatre in the round or in the round. Either I would accept. Proscenium arch. I don't think the diagram that I have given you is a particularly excellent example of a proscenium arch stage because we don't see that arch in the diagram. We don't see the wings, which is important for a proscenium arch stage. However, it is one. What we've got in the bottom left-hand corner is we've got a thrust stage, really nice and simple. Again, not a brilliant example because we can't see that cyclorama at the back, and we can't see actually the backspace that we have on a cyclorama. I can only see the apron of that thrust from my diagram. And then finally, in the bottom right, we've got the traverse stage. Really, really clear for us to see. We've got that catwalk area, and we've got the 2 different audience spaces on either side. So, task 2. I would like you to annotate the possible advantages and disadvantages to using the 4 different stage types that I have given you. Only annotate your resource with what you can recall from memory. Please don't check your notes. If you find that particularly easy and you finish within that 8-minute time period in a different colour, explain how some of the possible advantages to using that stage type would be appropriate for our country's good and for maybe some design ideas, from stylistic ideas for our country's good. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video now. I want you to take no longer than 8 minutes completing this task and come back when you are finished. Lovely stuff. Okay, so you will see that on the screen in front of you that I've got my 4 different stage types. I've actually got 4 different images there. The advantages are highlighted by the yellow hat and the disadvantages are highlighted by the black hat. Any additional details that you didn't get when you were completing your resource, I'd like you now to add in a different colour. So let's get rid of that off the screen. So we're going to start with the proscenium arch in the top left-hand corner. It is suited to more naturalistic pieces of theatre, and that is because what you have is you have the 3 walls, and then you have that 4th wall removed. And I always describe it as almost looking into a living room. So when you're watching TV, what you have is that 4th wall usually removed. And our TV acts as that 4th wall. So it's almost like we're peering in as audience members on the action. We've got a really clear view of the stage. We've got space to put lots of props in because we can put large props on that stage without any sight lines being impaired, unlike some of the other stages that we have. The audience usually is tiered for the best possible viewing platform. Okay, so the disadvantages, the black hat that you can see, it's hard to use symbolically. Okay, it is hard to interact with the audience because there's a little bit of space between them. Talking directly to the audience, it isn't the best stage to do that, and sometimes it might be hard to create a specific mood or atmosphere because we don't have that intensity, we don't have that intense proximity that we have with some of the other stage types. Some of the other advantages that you might have from a proscenium arch that you don't have written down is that we've got some wing space, we've got some fly space, which is some space above this stage that we can bring larger set pieces on and off. We can change the location really easily. We can use discrete sets instead of composite sets. So, wonderful stuff. You might have some additional information that I have not mentioned. Of course, that might be right or wrong. If you want something answered that I haven't gone through, then you're more than welcome to email me or look at Google. Let's move on to In the Round, though, or Theatre in the Round. One of the big advantages of that stage is that because the audience surround the action, they can see each other's reactions, and that's really, really effective in creating a mood or atmosphere. If something really tense is going on, and you can see a reaction not just from an actor, but from an audience member, that can be really, really powerful. It circles the drama, so it can be very, really, really intimate. Okay, it's really, really good at providing a symbolic element. So, for example, if you are trying to create a sense of entrapment or a mood of entrapment, the audience circling the actors creates that sense of entrapment. So if you have a character who might not be able to escape either literally or metaphorically, and in the round stage type could be really effective in creating that. The audience involvement, it's really, really easy to break the 4th wall because you're so close to the action. I know that the diagram doesn't actually demonstrate that particularly effectively here, but in lots of In the Round productions, it's really, really easy to just bring audience members in or talk directly to them because you're so close to them. Black hat or disadvantages, sightlines can be impaired. You can't always see the front of the actor. You can't use large pieces of set. It has to be minimalistic. However, if we think about Our Country's Good, because of the epic nature of that, minimalistic set designs is always what we're going for. Because of the epic nature of that direct address might be appropriate, and this stage type might work really well for that. So, moving on to thrust, looking at the positives, looking at the yellow hat, a cyclorama can be used for projection, and that's really good because what you don't have in a thrust usually is larger set pieces. And because of that, if you're trying to create a certain type of location, you can project that onto the cyclorama at the back of the thrust. It creates an intimate atmosphere, almost like In the Round. The audience surround the drama on 3 sides. Again, and the symbolic references to that are appropriate. The ones that I went through with In the Round are also appropriate here. Audience involvement, breaking that 4th wall, it's also really easy to do. You will notice that In the Round, thrust and traverse have a lot of the same advantages and disadvantages. The audience can see each other, another real positive. What I haven't written down, but what is appropriate, on a thrust, you sometimes have a little bit of space at the back of the stage. So not talking about the apron, which would need to be a minimalistic set design, but at the back you could put larger set pieces, but again, we don't have wings, so we couldn't easily move them on and off, but you would need to make that part of your considerations when thinking about using this stage. But I've put that you can place set upstage. Some of the disadvantages, again, like in the round sight lines, you can't always see the front of the actor. You can't use larger set pieces on the apron, so again, it's not really effective in creating that naturalism, but very, very similar with Our Country's Good. We look for a minimalistic set design with Epic Theatre, and that direct address is also powerful. You could project the Union flag onto the cyclorama and so on and so forth. So again, it could be really effective in doing that. A traverse is actually one of my favourites, but I think one of the more difficult ones to analyse in an exam response. It's suited to scenes of confrontation. Its catwalk makes for dynamic, fast-paced entrances and exits. Also, the confrontation is effective by the way that the audience are laid out. So you've got one side on one side and one side on the other. So what I mean by that is if you have two characters, one side of the audience could be supporting one and one side could be supporting the other. This type of stage is good for creating an intimate atmosphere. Also, you've got that nice proximity, the close proximity within the stage space and the audience members. The audience can see each other's reactions. Again, on some traverse stages, you could use a cyclorama. I might not reference this like you do with the thrust, but again, if you needed to, you could do. And again, you could place set up stage, but again, I wouldn't rely on that if I was to talk about a traverse stage. I would probably just keep with the ones that I've spoken about. Sightlines can be impaired again, so the disadvantages, and it doesn't always work for naturalism because you need to use larger pieces of set for that, and obviously this looks at a more minimalist set design. Again, appropriate for Epic Theatre, so Our Country's Good is, so what you have within the round, thrust and traverse, all of the same features of that Epic Theatre in Our Country's Good would be appropriate for those three types of staging. So if you need to pause the video so you can add any information to the notes that you've taken, please do so, but if you don't, let's move on. So, I'm going to ask you to look at lighting for the second part of this lesson. It's only going to be a 2-minute task. On your piece of paper, name the lanterns below. So, identify the different lanterns or the different lantern elements. So, notice that they're not all lights. Some of them are features that you add to lights. Can you write down these on the piece of paper in front of you? So, it might be that you were going to put A, B, C, D all the way to F, and then name the light or the lighting aid that goes with it. Try and attempt to do this task without checking your notes. If you are struggling to do this, first of all, do have a go. But if you are struggling, after 2 minutes, come back to this video and I'll give you a little bit of help. So try not to check your answers, but if you need the help, come back to the video and I will do my best to assist you without giving you all the answers. Okay, so here is a little bit of help for those of you who need it, and there is 1 minute extra. I've given you now the names of the lanterns or the lantern features on the screen. Can you, with this help, now fill in any blanks that you don't have? Okay, so what we now have, I'm going to go through these answers with you. So we've got A, it's a floodlight. B is a Fresnel. C is a profile spotlight. If you put spotlight, I will give you that anyway. D is an example of a gobo being used. Naturally, it's not the stencil that goes into the spotlight, but it is an example of a gobo being used on the stage. E is parkan and F are barn doors. Okay, so task 2 for this task, you now have 10 minutes. I'd like you to annotate the features of the individual lights. Okay, so again, this is not so much disadvantages and advantages, but more, can you just describe how the light works? Can you talk about why you might want to use that light in a piece of theatre, but also you could talk about why you might not want to. So again, it's not so clear cut this time. It might be just that you want to use some bullet points. So again, please don't check your notes, only annotate with the information that you know, and we will review them together in 10 minutes time. Pause the video now and come back when you are finished. Lovely. So let's review those lights. What I have done is I've put them into boxes. So you've got floodlight, Fresnel, profile spot, gobo, parkan and barn doors. I've given you a really brief overview of the information. I might be adding to this in my commentary, so it is definitely worth listening out. So a floodlight is used to provide a large area of wash on a stage. They come equipped with a gel frame, and gels are really good for adding colour, so it's just that little piece of plastic that we put in the front of our light that is coloured so that you can create a specific mood or atmosphere with that. They are particularly good for lighting backcloths. However, the beam cannot be shaped. What I would actually mention in addition to that is you normally see floodlights in industrial style places, so you might see them at a football stadium or on factory floors, and actually so it might be that we want to create an industrial atmosphere, especially in our country's good, so a floodlight might be really good for doing that, even though we can't create that sense of naturalism that comes with focusing the light or having a light with a soft edged beam. Looking now at Fresnel, they give a soft-edged beam with a large size variation. So you have a lot of space to fill, and you can do that effectively with a Fresnel. But you can also direct that light, and you can apply barn doors when doing that. You can apply a gel also, so if you're trying to create a specific mood and atmosphere, so with a blue gel it might be a cold atmosphere, a red gel might be very, very intense, so you could do that with that. The soft edge beam is really good for symbolising freedom, because we don't have that visual line on the stage where the light stops. It can be quite a freeing and natural light, opposed to the profile spot, which has that hard edged. So it could be really good for creating freedom symbolically, or more naturalistic pieces of drama where you don't want to see that defined cutoff from the light. Looking at a profile spot, it gives you a sharply defined image on the stage. So it is circular, should I say. They are fitted with shutters, so you can change the size variation of the circle. So it might be, if you've got two characters on the stage, you've got somebody in a really small circle and somebody in a slightly wider circle, possibly both demonstrating the same thing symbolically, but different variations of it. So if I give you an example, shutters being applied on a profile spot, and they being very small, and that surface area of the circle being very small, could imply, it could mean that you are unable to escape. You are enclosed, almost like with an in the round stage. But actually, if you've got two, one that's slightly wider, it could be a character that has more freedom. So if we're thinking about Our Country's Good, can you think of a character who is more free, but still has that level of entrapment, opposed to a character who is under very, very tight constraints? So again, how you decide to use that is up to you, but you can think about some of those ideas for your designs in Our Country's Good. Looking at a gobo, it filters the light, creating a picture effect on the stage. For example, it could be used to create a dappled effect, to look like leaves on the forest floor, or it could be used to create strips of light on stage which look like the bars of a prison. It could also be used symbolically. So if we think about a cross being a symbol of religion, we could project that onto a cyclorama or onto the stage floor in order to symbolise that. Again, the bars of a prison cell could also symbolise that entrapment. So they can be used very literally to create a location, or symbolically to create a mood or an atmosphere or a symbol. Gobos are really good for minimalistic set designs, because you have the ability to create locations with that light. Moving on to the parkan, this light can be an intense beam and is one of the cheaper lights, commonly used in pop concerts. You can apply barn doors and gels to this light. It is good for creating an intense atmosphere due to the power of the light that it displays. So if you have a character who's going through a really intense period within the play, a parkan and the intensity of that beam could be really good for representing the inner thoughts of that character, the inner panic or the inner anxiety that character's going through. And then finally, looking at barn doors, really, really simple. They're used to direct a particular light to a particular area of the stage. They can be applied to a parkan or a Fresnel. Now, what I would like you to do is just take a little bit of time, in a different colour, add any details of information that you didn't get to the resources that you have created today. Please do it in a different colour so I can see what you got and what you didn't get. You've peer assessed this yourself, so hopefully it's been really, really useful. What I am going to do now is, of course, pause the video if you need to continue to write down anything that I haven't, that you haven't got down while I've been speaking. But if not, we will move on. Finally, please upload this work to Microsoft Teams by or before the due date outlined in the email sent to you with today's resources. What needs to be submitted today? It needs to be a copy of your notes from today's lesson, that is the lighting and staging notes, and it needs to be a copy of your completed circle map from last lesson, reviewing those 3 different moments from the monologue. Okay, thank you very much for your time today. Stay safe. Goodbye.